Okay, with summer coming to a close, we've all caught wind around town that things are going to be changing on Crab Island next season. So we've invited Greg Kisela. He's with OKALOOSA County, and he's going to tell us a little bit about the committee they've formed to address the issues. Hi, Greg. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yes, there will be some changes for the 2020 season. The Board of County Commissioners, when they adopted the new ordinance for Crab Island last summer, said that the floating structures, the businesses that are operated out there, could continue to operate for this year, and then next year they could go out there during the day, but then they have to move at night. And that's going to be a pretty dramatic change for a number of those vessels. We have 11 floating structures on Crab Island.
Wow. In
addition, there's another 20 vendors that operate on Crab Island. So the Board of County Commissioners formed what we call a floating structures committee. They've been meeting for the last 6 to 8 months. They were a diverse group of folks. We've had vendors to representatives from the Destin Chamber, the Fort Walton Chamber, the Tourist Development Council, along with some upland property owners who operate on the water, to make some recommendations. They finished their work last week, and they're going to make some recommendations at a workshop on October 22nd at 1:30 there in the Shalimar Government Building. And they're going to recommend that the floating structures would continue to be able to be out there in 2020, but starting in 2021, they would eliminate the floating structures.
So wow, no more businesses out on Crab Island in 21.
They would continue to have vending, but you could no longer be able to attach to spud down to anchor down to the bottom. We've heard from the National Park Service that there is a lot of environmental damage that's occurring to the seagrasses. So they're recommending that we look at that, and the committee looked at it and so said, continue to do what you're doing on 2020, but in 2021 you stop.
Wow, so is that the main reason why they want to kind of move away from having the structures out there, is mainly the issue of what it's doing to the environment?
Yes, I mean the scarring to the seagrass is tremendous. And they've been looking at it, and this is a national park. Crab Island is part of the national park. And the federal government, the Park Service will tell you, the vending and the activities out there, not the recreational use of Crab Island, because nobody wants to take that away.
Right.
But the vending that's been operating out there over the last 15 years has really gotten out of hand. So they started this year requiring every one of the individuals who operate there to get a commercial use agreement. And so they've gotten those commercial use agreements. That's where they determined there was 31 folks conducting business on Crab Island during the season. So of those 11 structures, some of these structures, to give you a frame of reference, one of them is almost 1,500 square feet.
Wow, yeah, these are like legitimate buildings.
Yeah, a lot of people's starter homes are not 1,500 square feet. I mean, that is a big structure. So I think the Park Service is slowly, they've got a very deliberate process they use to evaluate who should operate in a national park. I mean, if you go into, Yellowstone, they have vendors, but they do a request for proposals, they select a concessionaire, and they operate it. This has gotten away from them. So they're going to go through that process, and at the end of the process, if they feel they need to have vending in this national park, they will issue an RFP, request for proposal. They'll select a concession, and then they'll operate out there. But right now, the county is taking the position that you can continue to operate out there for 2020. You have to move every night,
which is going to be a lot of work for some of the, especially a 1,500 square foot building. That may not even be.
Yeah, it's very difficult. I think that of those 11, several of them will not be able to do that. They'll just have to move. They won't be able to operate out there next year. And then in 2021, they would be banned. In addition, the committee is going to recommend to the board that instead of having 31 people, to ratchet that down to 15 vendors for starting in 2020. Again, we'll have to get policy direction from the board. We expect that to be at the workshop, and we probably have to do a lottery system of some sort because 31 folks have been out there, and there have been all sorts, anywhere from people running water taxis to selling, soda to ice cream people. So there's a whole assortment of folks out there. Again, I've not heard the board or anybody want to restrict or reduce the amount of fun out there.
Right.
That's fun, but it's over the last 15 years, the amount of vending, commercial activity on Crab Island started out 1 or 2, and now you got
grows
almost
every year.
It grows every year.
So is that why you guys want to scale back to 15? How did they come up with that number, or do they just want to minimize and make sure there are more quality vendors out there, or?
My sense was they looked at geographically how big Crab Island was and couldn't justify that you needed 31 businesses operating out there. So I think that was their thought process. Reduce it down to a manageable group, because when you have the vending, you have the recreational uses, you have kids swimming in the water, and all these vending boats running around, you got a safety issue. So I think it was a combination of, you just didn't need 31 folks out there. And secondly, from a safety standpoint, you didn't have all this vending, you could make it a little bit safer for the people that want to go out there for a good time. And the committee also was looked at the fee structure. We charge for the county for floating structures $1,000 a month. The committee wanted to do it in the small guys charge $500, to a medium size $1,000, and the big guys, because you got probably 3 of them out there, maybe 4, that have more than 1,500 square foot use of it. The 2 inflatable playgrounds, as well as the one out there, the floating barge. So those would pay $1,500, and I think they all will be asked to pay 1% of their gross revenue. So again, trying to have a way to offset all the emergency services. We're spending about $250,000 to $300,000 a year to have the Destin Fire Control and the Marine Patrol out there just to make it safe during the season. So it's expensive.
So you mentioned a workshop on October 22nd in Shalimar, right?
Yes.
So can anyone attend that? Is that open to the public?
Absolutely. It is at 1:30 there in the Shalimar Okaloosa County Administration Building. It's open to the public. The public will be allowed to have up to 3 minutes to express their views, pro or con, to these changes. We will have a staff report that's issued. Again, it will mirror the recommendations from the Floating Structures Committee. We'll give some background on the issue, and then the board will take public testimony, public comment, and then they'll give staff legislative direction, say, all right, tweak the ordinance, do this, do that. If they could easily say, don't make any changes. That's completely within their discretion. But I think the committee, and I want to thank the committee, because this was about an 8-month process. 7 individuals came, and they were committed, they were engaged. Again, they had representation across the board to make sure they gave the recommendations that were well thought out and considered for all the different stakeholders. So.